Hello everyone, I am Bobby Watson, and this is Read the Bible 2021 for Thursday, Actually, it's Thursday, April the 1st, April Fool's Day. Dr. Cribb asked me to Read the Bible through on April Fool's Day. Actually, just kidding. I actually asked Dr. Cribb if I might be able to take this day, and for a very special reason. As most of you know, I'm one of the two worship leaders at New Prospect Church, and there's a special reason I wanted to talk to you today. But first, let me go through our scripture readings for today. Leviticus chapter 4. And I'm sure Dr. Cribb has already been introducing us to this book. We had in Exodus where they were building the tabernacle. Now God is explaining how these sacrifices are to be made. And I'm going to say just two things about it. First of all, chapter 4, and really the other chapters right in front of it and behind it and right in this area, I don't recommend reading them right before you go to bed, especially in the NIV. And if you're reading them out loud, you might want to, there's a different kind of chapter here. And the other thing is, I've thought about it. I don't remember a whole lot of sermons where this particular chapter was read on a Sunday morning, which does not mean it's not important. In fact, it is very, very important. These sacrifices were required by God, but aren't you glad that our Savior made the sacrifice for us? Dr. Cribb will explain more about that, and like I say, if I were you, I'd read it earlier in the evening and not just before you go to bed. Another chapter that we're reading is chapter, I think it's 19, is that right? Chapter 19 out of Proverbs. We continue into the book of Proverbs, and I think starting back in chapter 16, I'm sure Dr. Cribb mentioned this, that we're talking here about how to live godly lives, advice on how to live a godly life. Dr. Cribb did a wonderful series on the 10 Commandments, how we shall then live. But here is another advice. You could actually enlarge on that sermon series, because there's plenty of advice here how godly people are to live. And that includes chapter 19, where our text for today, our chapter for today. I'm just going to mention verse number 20, listen to counsel and accept discipline, that you may be wise the rest of your days. Good advice, and part of just much good advice that comes from the Proverbs, and our chapter today is 19 as we read it together. I also want to mention to you about Colossians, our New Testament verse or chapter for this day. We're in the second chapter of Colossians already. It's amazing how quickly we're going through the New Testament. And I'll only mention here that I think about this a lot when I read these this theological expose that the Lord that gives us through Paul. Paul is really one who taught us about how this all works. But we have to remember that those early Christians did not have the advantage of having the book right in their hand. They were sharing it with one another. I'm sure that there was a lot of false doctrines that were getting woven in there. Paul was trying to make sure that they got good sound doctrine and that they kept it, and that they would expound on it and continue it as time would go on. And there's one thing I think it's important to remember about these early Christians. That did not happen in other religions at that time. And there were a lot of different religions. The Roman Empire had their own pagan religions, their own pagan gods. And they were commanded to bow down to them. And so sometimes a lot of confusion on behalf of the people who were trying to figure out how to find God. But when they came to the Lord Jesus Christ, He changed their lives, even back then. So God changes people's lives. That is a testimony that we need to learn and remember as we look at these texts, that these people were redeemed. Paul was just explaining to them how to know good sound doctrine. So continue as we read in the epistles here, and today it's in his advice to the church in Colossae, which Colossae I think was just a small town, so it was a small town congregation. I don't think Paul was actually there. He was trying to send them a message and let them know that he loved them and try to give them some instruction. Actually, he commended them, I think. He thought that they were strong in the Lord. He was trying to give them encouragement and advice. Which brings me to the reason that I asked Dr. Cribb for this few minutes today. And that is that we are introducing one of the greatest hymn books ever compiled in the history of mankind. And that is the book of Psalms. It's actually a compilation of 150 songs. These songs were actually sung. These songs were actually accompanied by instruments, different instruments than we would use today, but in a way they were similar. They had stringed instruments, they had flutes, they had other types of instruments, drums, and etc. The sound of their music was probably different. But the important thing was that there were words that were sung. And we have 150 of them. Largest English, in the English Bible, it's the largest book, biggest book in the Bible. I believe Dr. Cribb can correct me if I'm wrong. A couple of Old Testament books might be longer as far as the Hebrew words are concerned, but when it comes to the English Bible, 150 chapters, it's the longest and biggest book in our canon. But these are songs that are to be sung. And the reason I asked Dr. Cribb if I might be able to share with you just a minute, as you start reading these songs, I hope that you'll enjoy them together as a worship to the Lord. Most of these songs are written to worship, or at least they'll have a part of that song is for worship. There are songs there that where David was in exile and he was fearing for his life. There's songs where people are depressed. There's songs where they're joyous. There's songs where they're celebrating. So that these songs cover a big gamut, and they're divided into 5 different books, and Dr. Cribb will tell us a lot about that. What I wanted to tell you about is this. I think it's important for every person who knows the Lord to sing to Him. Now you say, Bobby, you don't understand. Have you ever heard me sing? You would not say that. Well, I know I've not heard a lot of you sing, and maybe some of you that don't really want to have anybody else hear you. But let me tell you somebody who would like to hear you, and that's the Lord. The Lord does not hear our praises. He does not hear our singing with physical ears like we hear that take wavelengths. And there are some people who make some very dissonant wavelengths. It's hard for humans to listen to. But it's not hard for God to listen to. That's the reason that in worship services where I'm leading in worship, it doesn't really make any difference how good or how bad it is. If we have our hearts in the right place and we are worshiping the Lord with our hearts, God will hear our praise and He will hear our hymns. And they could be contemporary, they could be traditional, they could be country, they could be Southern gospel. They could be anything. But the problem is with music, regardless of the genre, especially today where we have recorded music and we're all listening for it and we all hear it over and over again. Think for the first 4,000 years, people would sing it one time and that would be it. But people wouldn't hear it again. Today we have it recorded over and over and over again. So if I sing a song on Sunday morning, it's being rebroadcast tens of thousands of times via the internet, via recordings and other things. Don't worry about all that kind of stuff. Let's worry about our audience. And the audience is not the congregation. The audience is not whoever's listening to you with their physical ears. The audience is the Lord when we're in worship. So that's one reason that I encourage you, no matter how you sing, to lift it to the Lord. I was in a funeral several years ago. In fact, it was my sister-in-law, the funeral for my sister-in-law, Susan's next oldest sister, back in 1998. She asked me to sing How Great Thou Art, and I came in and sang How Great Thou Art to the best of my ability. And as you know, I have a big voice, and it fills up the whole room. And generally when I start to sing, people kind of look, and it's a big voice. But then another man came up to sing, and to be honest with you, he probably didn't have the biggest voice. He sang with a guitar and a piano. He sang, I don't remember what he sang, except that he stood up there at the front, and when he got to the end of the song, we were all in tears because he was singing from his heart. I think he was a better representative of the Lord that day than I was. It's hard for me in funerals because sometimes I have to say, well, I want to do a good job, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we're communicating with the Lord when I sing this song. That's the same way it is in church. Listen, we have sung some mighty anthems with the choir. I have sung some tremendous songs that get up really big and get huge applause. But I have the fear sometimes that the Lord doesn't even hear them because my heart was not in the right place. The same thing is true for you. So that when you get ready to sing praises to the Lord in your car, as you're reading these songs, as you're coming to church, you may be a little bit embarrassed to sing out where other people can hear you, but make sure that you're making a song in your heart. Make sure that you're singing along with us. I can guarantee you one thing. You will never be humiliated because you sing off pitch. Nope. I'm leading you in praise, and so that's what's important. All of these songs that we call the book of Psalms were sung. Most of them with instruments. And they were a legacy that continues in the church today, whether it's contemporary or traditional. I don't even like the phrases contemporary and traditional. We're just all praising the Lord. Some of us, we need the. It's hard for me sometimes to sing contemporary songs. It's just not my style. In the same way, it's hard for some contemporary younger folks and even older folks who really enjoy some of the contemporary music. They can worship better than they can with some of the traditional hymns. It doesn't make any difference to the Lord. He hears the songs of our hearts. So I hope as you read the Psalms that you'll be excited about them. And I hope that you'll be excited about Read the Bible 2021. Dr. Cribb and Pastor Drew and Pastor Jay, I want you to know that your leadership in this is one of the greatest things that's happening in our church right now. In fact, I'm proud of the future at New Prospect Church. You're going to hear a lot about the past. You're going to hear a lot about things that took place in the past. And we had some big choirs, we had some big groups, but I don't think we ever had the Bible-based ministry any better than what we have it right now through our staff. So thank you, staff. Thank you, Dr. Cribb, for your leadership. Let's join together as we read the Bible 2021. Hope you have a great day.